The structure for the World Championships to be held in August this year has officially been revealed to us. Now, this isn't massive news, but it is a very big structure shakeup from what we had in past formats. And I really wanted to get this information out to you guys. I want to hear your thoughts. This is going to be formulated as a discussion video. I'm curious as your thoughts. I'll give you guys my thoughts as well. But we're going to break this down. And first and foremost, what exactly is happening here? There is going to be 6 to 8 rounds of Swiss on day 1, and then 2 to 4 rounds of Swiss on day 2. The Swiss rounds are what we normally play in the tournament, so that's nothing new. But the way they've broken this up is new. There's also going to be an asymmetrical top cut, meaning everybody with the same record as the 8th place seed is going to make top cut, unless that exceeds top 32, in which case it's going to be a clean top 32 cut. Now, what this means basically, to break this down a little bit more as I go into the chart here, we'll take the basic example here of 1 to 128 players. There's going to be 8 total rounds. You're looking at 6 Swiss rounds in day 1 and 2 Swiss rounds in day 2. And if you were to break down those numbers, you're going to end up with 8th place being a 6-2 record, meaning everybody with a 6-2 record will make top cut at Worlds. They will then play the general top cut bracket and go from there. However, we do not have that number of players. This year at Worlds, my guess, if I had to break down the numbers, is going to be somewhere at the higher end of this 257 to 512 or the lower end of the 513 to 1024. Now, I am basing this solely off of my knowledge of being at 140 North American invites leading up to the North American International Championships. Now, these numbers are going to be guessed. I didn't really have time to break these down for you guys. I really just wanted to get this video out as soon as possible and announce the structure of the format of Worlds. So my numbers may be off, but based on 140 North American invites before North American International Championships, let's assume we get about 200, maybe 180, somewhere in there, North American invites. You also have to get the European internationals or the European players as well. Basically, if I'm going to put this all together, my guess is we're going to have about 600 qualifiers for Worlds this season, which is great, and it's about 200 more than last year. The way I look at this is not everybody is going to be able to afford Worlds. Not everybody is going to be able to travel for Worlds. There are tons of implications where players may not be able to make it. So I really do think we're sitting at around probably like the 500 players checked in sort of thing, which is meaning we're probably going to sit in this bracket. However, I think there is a chance to sit in this bracket. So we're looking at about 8 rounds of day 1 Swiss, with most likely 2 rounds in day 2, maybe a third if a lot of the players actually do check in and show up, right? So that's the way to look at it. Now, back in the day, my thoughts on this format. Back in the day, you would have to go about, generally it was 7 rounds day 1, and then day 2 was about 5 or 6 rounds, given how many people qualified or not. But basically, back in the day, it was you would go 5-2 or better on day 1. You would advance to day 2, no problem. It would be a fresh tournament on day 2, and you'd basically have to do the exact same thing again. You'd basically have to go 5-2 again, right? Meaning, if we're saying we had to go 5-2 and 5-2, meaning you can go ahead and say, you know what, I had to go 10-4 to top cut the World Championships. That is no longer the case. Now, we knew they removed the day 2 structure heading into the season, but we weren't necessarily sure how they were going to break down this new format. And now this is what we have in front of us now. So now I need to go, if let's just say, assuming this round 8 rounds is going to be 10 rounds, I'm going to have to go 8-2, right? Or any player is going to have to go 8-2 to advance to the top cut of the World Championships. Now, granted, is that perhaps better? There's a lot to be said here. Do we want more people to feel like they have a chance at top cutting the World Championships? Now, I don't think it necessarily means there's going to be more people top cutting. I think it's going to be harder to get to that stage, right? Because technically 5-2 and 5-2 is technically like going, since it's 2 separate tournaments into one, it's still going to be similar amount of people that are making top cut at Worlds, right? It'll still be very close to around a top 32 mark. You're probably looking at about 20 something numbers at the end of the day. It's just a little bit harder. You have to be a little bit more consistent this time because you don't have the buffer of the days resetting in the middle anymore, right? So now I have to go 8-2 instead of going 10-4. You get less rounds and less rooms for error, but I feel like the more rounds, you had a lot more room for error, right? You also have the issue now of a player potentially going 6-2 on day one, having to show up for the next 2 rounds of Swiss on the second day and having to re-lock in, right? And I'm not saying locking in on a tournament is necessarily difficult. Like, I feel like if you're a good player, and I feel like everybody attending the World Championships is a good enough player to a spot where they should be able to lock back in. But sometimes the way the formats work and the way momentum swings and all that kind of stuff work is that break could be detrimental. That could change a lot of what is happening, right? I remember back in Fort Wayne in 2 years ago now at this point, right? Or I guess not this circuit, but the previous circuit, right? I was 3-1 going into lunch break. I felt great. We had it was like a 2-hour lunch break. I don't know why we had a 2-hour lunch break. I couldn't begin to tell you why. Came back out of that lunch break, played probably one of the worst sets of Pokemon I've ever played. And that 2-hour lunch break reset my mentality. Whereas maybe perhaps if we don't have that 2-hour lunch break, I'm still locked in. I don't lose that next round. I did end up making day 2 that day anyways, but it doesn't matter, right? What I'm saying is these breaks and that immediate break in the middle where the tournament doesn't necessarily reset is crazy. Now, granted, is it a little bit different? It's no real different than locking back in for a day 2, right? Like if you go 7-2 day 1, you come back in, your record doesn't get reset, and you still got to lock right back in, right? So I don't think it's necessarily bad by any means. It's just sometimes those momentum swings change whether or not you're making top cut or not making top cut, right? Like I've started 2-2 at regionals, but you start 2-2, that next game, all of a sudden, you start getting a rhythm going and you climb yourself all the way back. Next thing you know, you're 6-2 out of winning it. But now let's just say I start 2-2, I win 4 games in a row, I have momentum. I've got to stop now because the day is over, and then I got to relock back in tomorrow. Is that necessarily a bad thing? I don't know. I haven't played in a format. I haven't been in a scenario outside of actually once I've advanced to day 2 like this. I haven't played more of the same Swiss rounds the day after. Right? I haven't been in that scenario. It's tough for me to judge, but that's kind of where we're at with these rounds right now. It's also, if you guys are curious at the numbers that are being broken down here, Nick Donnelly also broke those down for us earlier. I'll leave both of these tweets down below, guys, for you guys so you can check it out on your own. But basically, if we do hit that 1,024 player, that area there, the 513 to 1024, we're looking at about, once again, maybe 1 or 2 players at X2 will finish 33rd and 34th. I think that scenario is highly, highly unlikely because that would involve us having very close to 1,024 players at Worlds. Guys, we're not going to have 1,024 players at Worlds. And if that were to be the case, well, a couple of us are going to bubble. We're not going to have that. I think max 600. I can't see us having more players than that at the World Championships this year. Meaning, this is going to be a clean cut. So these numbers are slightly askew. But basically, you're going to have one person at 11-0 after the Swiss rounds. You're going to have 5 people, maybe 6 at X1. And then you're going to have everybody else at 9-2. And 9-2 will guarantee you top cut. 9-2 is a lot. It's not easy to achieve a 9-2, but a 9-2 will guarantee you top cut. Same thing with if we sit in the other bracket and we fall below 5-12. You're going to have 1 10-0. 5 X and 1s, and then once again 8-2 in this case is going to secure yourself a top cut at the World Championships. I don't know about this format. I've seen a lot of comments online. Some people are saying it's interesting. Some people are saying they like it. I think it's cool. I think I'm not going to really speak I can't really give my thoughts. I can give you initial thoughts, which I feel like I have, but I'm not going to start trashing this or praising this format before I've actually played in it. Right? It just seems like a little weird. Like I said, that break in the middle between the Swiss rounds. It's a little weird, but granted, I don't know how else they were going to do it. You know, I feel like it would have been better if they just put all the 10 rounds on day 1 and said 10 rounds day 1, and then if you've advanced, you play day 2, you play the top cut on day 2, and you go from there, right? Without that break, it might have been a little bit better. But that's my breakdown, guys. Hopefully you guys do enjoy this video. Like I said, more so of the discussion video. I really do want to hear your thoughts on if we think this is the right format, the right way to approach this format, stuff like that. Do you think it's better or worse than having the day 1, day 2 structure? Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Really wanted to just get this video out for you guys as soon as I possibly could. Curious on your thoughts. If you guys do enjoy this type of content, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. If you are waiting for my North American International Championship recap, it will be out tomorrow now. Like I said, I just wanted to get this out while this information was still relevant, while it was still fresh in everybody's minds. So if you're looking for that, it'll be out tomorrow. But with that, I'm going to stop rambling now. Thank you all so much for checking out the video, and I'll catch you all in a future video.